bringing you the latest news from around the world, and here at home, I'm Sandro Ferdinando.
And I'm Azra San. Let's now start off with a look at the headlines.
Island-wide state of emergency announced for 1 week. Police curfew reimposed on Teldenia and Pallekele police divisions. Handing over of the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister postponed. Sri Lanka take on India in the curtain raiser of the Tri-Series.
On our top story now, President Maithripala Sirisena made a special statement today relating to the situation prevailing in the country.
ගෙවි ගිය දින දෙක තුන තුල අම්පාර මහනුවර ප්‍රදේශවල ඇති වූ
During the past few days, certain incidents took place in Ampara and Kandy, causing losses to life and property. The tense situation which arose in those areas created an environment where primarily the day-to-day activities of the people in the country were obstructed. I express my condolences to the families and relatives who encountered a loss of life and property. At the same time, I completely condemn the acts of violence that led to this situation. I have instructed the police to enforce strict legal action against any individual, organization and group that prompted this situation. In order to build unity and an environment where everyone can live in peace and happiness, I have instructed the police, the Special Task Force, the Sri Lanka Army, public servants and the local politicians to work together on these matters with commitment. I must mention, taking this situation into consideration, the government will take all measures that are required to build unity and reconciliation within the country, as well as trust and friendship among communities. I respectfully request the Mahasangha led by the most venerable Mahanayakas, as well as the Hindu, Muslim and Christian priests and leaders to provide the necessary instructions and advice to the local politicians to prevent altercations and bring calm and control to any uneasy situation. I respectfully inform their intervention is essential towards this. The police, Sri Lanka Army and the police Special Task Force will be in operation 24 hours of the day, and we have instructed them to ensure all measures are taken to maintain peace in the area. I convened a special meeting of the National Security Council to discuss these matters. All these measures were discussed at that meeting. A streamlined program has been prepared on what measures need to be taken in the future following a discussion with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers. Therefore, everyone must remain very calm and peaceful.
විශේෂයෙන් අපි බෞද්ධ රටක් විදිහට නහි වේරේන වේරාණී සම්මන්තිද කුදාචරං අවේරේනච සම්මන්තියේ සදම්මෝ සනත්තර වෛරෙන් වෛරය සංසිඳෙන්නේ නැති බව.
As Buddhists, we are well aware hate cannot drive out hate. Therefore, as a Buddhist country, if there are any acts of violence or harm taking place, it brings great disrepute and disgrace to the nation. At the same time, I request the Hindu, Islam and Christian followers to follow the teachings of their religions and live in a peaceful and calm manner while strengthening the peaceful environment that we have. I also respectfully request them to work together in peace in order to provide the necessary revival required for the country's economy. The government is taking all required measures in order to maintain political stability in the country, build unity, as well as build friendship and reconciliation among all communities. I must make special note that all necessary action will be taken against anyone who is provoking violence. At the same time, false reports are spreading across social media platforms, rumors and via telephone calls. It is clear there are certain groups operating to breach the peace in the country and make the people uneasy by spreading false rumors and false reports. We will enforce the law against such people. We will take the relevant strict action against them. I must mention, as the government, I will be taking all measures to ensure we all can live in happiness in our motherland in a free and peaceful environment.
මා විසින් සියලු කටයුතු කරන බව මෙහිදී ඔබට පැහැදිලි කිරීමට මේ අවස්ථාව වැදගත් අවස්ථාවක් කොට සැලකෙනවා.
The president promulgated an island-wide state of emergency for a week. The head of state took the measure enacting the powers of Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance.
Issuing a statement, the President's media division cited the following reasons for declaring a state of emergency: acts of violence and criminal offences over the past 2 weeks, loss of life and property damage ensued by these incidents, unrest and disharmony between races and religions, attacks and damages caused on property, religious sites and transportation facilities, continued criminal acts in addition to the aforementioned causes. The statement issued by the President's media division says these incidents turned violent at certain instances, adding they were premeditated by organized groups. The statement reads further, the government decided to impose emergency regulations to restore a secure atmosphere, restore normalcy to public life, continue supplies and services, and re-establish peace. With the enactment of emergency regulations, powers to contain the situation will be delegated to the Sri Lanka Police and Tri-Forces.
Sri Lanka Police announced this evening a police curfew has been imposed in the Kandy Administrative District from 8 p.m. today to 6 a.m. tomorrow.
A special meeting between the President and Cabinet Ministers was held this morning.
The meeting, which was held at the President's office, was regarding the current situation in the country. There are small issues coming up claiming the law was not enacted properly and the proper security was not provided. As a result, the President and the Cabinet of Ministers decided to declare a state of emergency for a week by dispatching additional number of police and army personnel to control the situation. The President was primarily focused on imposing an island-wide state of emergency. We also decided to take strict action against those who incite racial disharmony via social media platforms. We strongly believe the President and Prime Minister will take the required course of action. The country was in an uneasy situation solely because of the interests of a handful of racists. The incident yesterday was also a result of the interests of a few. They are using these issues to create disharmony in the country, so the government should implement the law regardless of whether they are Sinhala, Muslim or Tamil. So it was proposed that a state of emergency be declared in the country for a week. The government has to take a firm decision and move ahead, and I think this is the beginning of that process. A special meeting was held in Kandy today to discuss the incidents in Theldenia and Pallekele.
24 members of parliament who attended sittings today left for Kandy for the discussions aboard a special helicopter. Religious leaders, including the Anunayakas of the Askiri and Malwatu chapters of the Siam sect, also attended the discussion, which was held at the Kandy District Secretariat. In his sermons, the Lord Buddha preached Dhamma to his followers for a just society. It is the duty of the followers to live in peace and harmony. What has happened has happened. From today, let us hold ourselves responsible to work together as one. The general public of this country should work on living mindfully, wisely, intelligently and peacefully in the future. Each person should look to their own faiths and face the issues they have experienced without causing damage to your own peaceful lives. We have to learn to live without fighting over minor issues. We hope to live in peace and harmony by following Prophet Muhammad and the teachings of the Holy Quran.
Today's parliamentary affairs were postponed for a debate on the prevailing situation in the country. Chief Opposition Whip Anurukumara Desanayake proposed the debate. We now bring you a special statement on recent events that have taken place in the country.
What we see today did not begin today. It is the result of a systematic policy carried out through the ages to ensure unity is defeated and disunity reigns eternal. But ultimately, who has been the victor and who has been the defeated? It is against this backdrop that we must consider 1983. The rioting that occurred on the city streets and villages in almost every part of Sri Lanka resulted in untold bloodshed that lasted an entire generation. The cost in terms of property can perhaps be calculated, but who can calculate the loss of precious life and the cost of opportunity? It was the government's responsibility at the time to ensure law and order was maintained, but it did not. The very government that the people trusted to protect them turned away, and a nation bled for decades. Today, the incidents of the past few days in Kandy are signs of a sinister attempt to ensure that the seeds of hate are sown back into the tightly knit fabric of our communities. The troublemakers and rabble-rousers will set alight our fears and then leave. Who will be there to pick up the pieces? Who will repair the damage done to another generation? Who will fight the wars and battles of the future? Who will rebuild our economy and keep the home fires burning? Who will take care of our sick and wounded? Who will take responsibility for our children's futures? Certainly not the troublemakers roaming the streets today. They will disappear, leaving us all with a wrecked nation and lost opportunity. But today, we the people can be proud. Despite the instigating and sponsored racism, our nation has held itself together, especially last night. We must recognize the strength, unity and love our people have for each other. One must also recognize and salute the President and the government for taking swift action and stemming this right at the outset. We must honor our security forces and the police for doing their duty by the people and for protecting us against the vile attempts of a few. What we do today will have repercussions not just on us, but on our children and theirs. We must therefore seize this opportunity to renew our commitment to a strong and united Sri Lanka. And we must, together, in one single voice, discard and reject everything that will retard our nation's right to happiness and prosperity.
It is the innocent Sinhala, Tamil and Muslim people who are battered by racism. It is the political leaders and political parties, as we are all political forces, who gain political advantage by provoking racism. However, the innocent people are battered by this. Therefore, the people must be very vigilant. They must act intelligently. The people must be more patient and more wide and need to understand the dangers of racism and its consequences. No matter who provokes, be it the politician doing so for political gains, the people must not listen to them and must act wisely to create national reconciliation. When an incident takes place at times of misunderstanding, those who assume they were treated unjustly and they suffered a loss of attempt to portray the incidents using racism. They provoke others and create a racist struggle. The masses need to stay away from this. If we consider the situation that arose in 1983, the conflict that developed in the country afterwards, and the situation that arose later, once again, if there is a collapse in peace and disharmony among communities and religious groups, I believe it will have a very grave negative impact on a majority of the Sri Lankans. If we take a look at the situations we are experiencing, it is clear to us there was a plan in the past to ensure there was no unity among the communities, and this is a result of that. We need to enter into a more broad national program to control such situations.
Now, as highlighted earlier, today's parliamentary affairs were postponed for a debate on the prevailing situation in the country. Chief Opposition Whip Anurakumar Disanayake proposed the debate.
Those who lost power have launched their struggle to grasp power by provoking racism. The government, in order to hold their grip on power, is purposely allowing these racist trends to continue, or else they are pretending as if they did not see this. You favor such situations rising to undermine the blow you suffered following the local government elections. You can enforce the emergency law. When you do so, will another government be appointed? The safe government will continue. If you enforce the normal law in the country properly, that would have been sufficient to put down these racist trends. There would have been no need for an emergency law. Back in '83, a similar issue rose. There were trade union battles. The economy was collapsing because the people began to realize the 1977 development was just a myth. The opposition from the people grew at that time. At this time, the tool of racist altercations were used. You are the leaders who wear the crown, who used a very disgraceful and dark past to maintain control over power. You are using the same tool this time as well. If our generations fought in 30 years, we cannot allow another war for our future generations.
All these incidents are not spontaneous incidents. These are organized incidents. The police curfew imposed on the Palle-Calais and Teldenia police divisions is still in effect. The CID has also dispatched a team to investigate the incidents. Last night we contacted all the public representatives, religious leaders, the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Defence Staff via telephone and provided instructions on controlling the situation. As a government, we vehemently condemned all these acts of racism and violence. At this time, the police acted to protect the law and peace. There were shortcomings. At some times, there was a collapse in law. The IGP is investigating the matter. If there are officers who did not do their duty, action will be taken against them. However, I must mention this. A majority of the police officers were committed to maintain the peace. We must praise them. We also act to compensate for the loss of property and injuries that were caused. The Cabinet decided, if required, to enforce the emergency law for a period of 7 days and other required law for this small period.
As a government, you must take responsibility for this incident. There is a conspiracy behind this. Legal action needs to be taken against the people who are living in the shadow of the government. We must bring about a day where we all can work with trust. As a person who is living within the culture of the majority Sinhalese, I am not afraid today a majority of the Sinhala community are not racist. At the same time, I must say a majority of the Muslim community too are not racist. That is the reality. However, there is a minority group of extremist opportunists who set the country ablaze for their personal needs. We have never come across a situation where the government looks on where such a situation is taking place. If you are governing this country by falling into the political traps of various individuals, it is much more better to just do nothing and not govern at all.
The no-confidence motion, which was set to be brought by the joint opposition today against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, has been postponed.
We have to win this. So we have gathered 3 groups against the Prime Minister, namely the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, United National Party and ourselves. All of us appointed 3 secret committees and collected their signatures to bring in a joint no-confidence motion. All measures in this regard are being planned. It will be submitted the moment it is completed. We are not afraid. It's just that we have to win this. And to do this, we have to look at all possibilities. It is very good. We cannot bring it out now because there is a different struggle going on in the country at the moment. It was temporarily postponed, but everything is in place to send the Prime Minister home at the correct time. Given the current situation in the country, it was temporarily postponed because this too is a conspiracy of the government. The police should be held fully accountable for everything which has happened. So does the Prime Minister, who is in charge of the police. We see these incidents as a conspiracy to save his position as Prime Minister.
This is not a conspiracy or anything else for that matter. Those in the flower bud are just creating lies. The joint opposition is trying to bring instability to the country and destabilize the state mechanism. The people of this country have given us a mandate for 5 years, so we as MPs of the United National Party will do everything in our capacity to protect this mandate, the good governance government, the President and Prime Minister.
Japanese Taisei Corporation, who recently won the contract for the construction of the 3rd phase of the Central Expressway, is once again the center of controversy in their home country. Several employees of Taisei Corporation have been apprehended by Japanese prosecutors for their alleged involvement in bid rigging and price fixing for a $80 billion magnetic levitation locomotive project in Japan.
The scandal centers on possible collusion over contracts for the project by four of the giants of Japan's construction industry: Kojima Corporation, Jimzu Corporation, Obayashi Corporation and Taisei Corporation. The Tokyo District Public Prosecutor's Office and the Japan Fair Trade Commission had raided the headquarters of these companies in December, following reports that the four companies were under investigation for possible antitrust violations related to the magnetic levitation locomotive contracts. The contractors are suspected of having conspired to decide in advance which of them would win orders and at what prices, meeting regularly to discuss bids. On the 2nd of March, Tokyo prosecutors arrested officials at Taisei and Kojima on suspicion of rigging bids for the project. Shares in the four construction firms fell sharply following the outbreak of the news in December and are now trading 13 to 23% lower compared with before the scandal. Newsfirst reported that this same Taisei Corporation received the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers to construct the third phase of the Central Expressway. Through the recent cabinet reshuffle for the United National Party ministers, the subject of highways was removed from Minister Lakshman Kiriyalla and was handed over to Minister Kabir Hashim. However, according to the political column on Sunday Times on the 4th of this month, it was reported a Gazette notification to be issued any time now will bring under Kiriyalla's purview the multi-million-dollar Central Expressway Section 3 project from Potuhara to Galagedara via Rambukkana. This is the biggest ever highway project in the country.
The Sri Lanka Air Force will join hands with Newsfirst Gammada tomorrow in a cleanup program at Adams Peak. The program marks the 67th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Air Force. Adams Peak is a site sacred to multi-religious ethnicities. However, the increasing amount of pollution caused by the negligence and carelessness of some tourists has stolen the natural beauty and wonder of this sacred location. To mark its 67th anniversary, the Sri Lanka Air Force will undertake this initiative of national importance by conducting a clean-up operation at Adams Peak tomorrow and the day after. Newsfirst is collaborating with the Sri Lanka Air Force given the national importance.
A team with a strength of 300 personnel will conduct this exercise on both the 7th and 8th. Of these 300 personnel, 200 will be conducting cleanup operations along the Nallatanya Road, while the remaining 100 will clean up along the Ratnapura Road. So just like they did 6 months ago, this time too, the Sigosa Media Network volunteered for this program without hesitation through Gammada and joined hands with the Sri Lanka Air Force. Gammada becomes a partner in the cleanup project of the pathway leading to Adams Peak from Nallatanya, organized to mark the 67th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Air Force. The cleanup begins at 7 a.m. tomorrow.
In more local news, Prince Murad Rad Zaid Al Hussein, a special envoy on the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention, visited Muhumale today to inspect the demining operation underway in the area.
I'm very happy to be here today visiting the demining operation. I'm really very impressed with what I have seen. The professionalism is outstanding. I congratulate the government of Sri Lanka for this fantastic work that is going on here in this part of Sri Lanka, in this beautiful part of Sri Lanka. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
According to the Landmine Monitor, over 22,100 people have been killed or injured by landmines or explosive remnants of war over time in the country. The government aims for Sri Lanka to be mine impact free by 2020. Last year, the government of Japan provided 190 million rupees for the humanitarian demining of northern Sri Lanka. Japanese funding allowed teams to remove 2,000 mines and other explosive items from 20 hectares in 2017.
Stay with us on TV1 for Biz First in Focus.
With political instability and negative publicity, will investors continue to look to Sri Lanka? The CEO of the Shippers Academy in Colombo, Mr. Rohan Masakorala, talks to Newsfirst Shahin Jurampate after the news.
Well, once again, let's have a look at the special statement made.
What we see today did not begin today. It is the result of a systematic policy carried out through the ages to ensure unity is defeated and disunity reigns eternal. But ultimately, who has been the victor and who has been the defeated? It is against this backdrop that we must consider 1983. The rioting that occurred on the city streets and villages in almost every part of Sri Lanka resulted in untold bloodshed that lasted an entire generation. The cost in terms of property can perhaps be calculated, but who can calculate the loss of precious life and the cost of opportunity? It was the government's responsibility at the time to ensure law and order was maintained, but it did not. The very government that the people trusted to protect them turned away, and a nation bled for decades. Today, the incidents of the past few days in Kandy are signs of a sinister attempt to ensure that the seeds of hate are sown back into the tightly knit fabric of our communities. The troublemakers and rabble-rousers will set alight our fears and then leave. Who will be there to pick up the pieces? Who will repair the damage done to another generation? Who will fight the wars and battles of the future? Who will rebuild our economy and keep the home fires burning? Who will take care of our sick and wounded? Who will take responsibility for our children's futures? Certainly not the troublemakers roaming the streets today. They will disappear, leaving us all with a wrecked nation and lost opportunity. But today, we the people can be proud. Despite the instigating and sponsored racism, our nation has held itself together, especially last night. We must recognize the strength, unity and love our people have for each other. One must also recognize and salute the President and the government for taking swift action and stemming this right at the outset. We must honor our security forces and the police for doing their duty by the people and for protecting us against the vile attempts of a few. What we do today will have repercussions not just on us, but on our children and theirs. We must therefore seize this opportunity to renew our commitment to a strong and united Sri Lanka. And we must, together, in one single voice, discard and reject everything that will retard our nation's right to happiness and prosperity.